All right. We're live. Hello, everyone. This is Team All on the Line, North Carolina. My name is Bri. I'm the North Carolina digital organizer.
And I'm Lekha. I'm the North Carolina State Director.
And we are doing our daily recap. We've been at the General Assembly all day observing the map drawing process. We've got they were drawing North Carolina House maps, North Carolina Senate maps, and congressional maps today. So we're just gonna share kind of what we saw for folks who maybe didn't want to spend their entire day toggling between multiple screens, even though it's,
Yeah, I don't recommend it. It like has fried my brain.
Yeah, it's a lot to navigate. Yeah. Turns out that this whole their idea of transparency is like a fire hose of map drawing. Yep. Well, so first let's start with some of the House and Senate maps and what we saw. I know I was observing this morning when we saw, well, first let's say, who is drawing these maps by and large?
Yeah, I mean, we've mostly seen committee chairs drawing the maps. So in the House, we've seen Justin Hall, who's the chair of the House committee, drawing, working on some House maps or like one House map that he's worked on over the past couple of days. And then in the Senate, we've mostly seen Senate chairs also working. So there are multiple Senate chairs in the Senate committee, and there's only one in the House, which is like a little weird. Maybe, I mean, or at least one that actually does anything. But anyway, but we've seen chairs, Senator Daniel, Senator Hayes, and Senator Newton, who are all chairs of that committee, drawing maps. And we've seen them draw both state legislative maps and congressional maps. We talked about some of the nuts congressional maps that we saw yesterday, and today was no exception.
We've got more maps, more congressional maps that were drawn today. Just a few highlights or kind of things to like raise up from what we saw in the legislative maps that were being drawn today. So Hall was drawing, what I saw, he was mostly sticking to drawing in like the northeastern part of the state. The maps that I observed him drawing are on my Twitter feed if folks want to go and see the pictures of those maps, because they're from different parts of the state. But my Twitter is at Bribro, BRIBROUGH, and I've got pictures of the maps that Representative Hall was drawing out in the Outer Banks and in the northeastern part of the state. And it's just interesting to see them kind of going through and just like putting precincts here and there, putting them in. I mean, yes, they're trying to get the populations to be correct, but it certainly it's interesting to watch them do that and see how they're talking about different places and just kind of like offhand throwing places in one or the other district without much regard to what the communities of interest might be in those places. I definitely noticed that along the Outer Banks with Hall's map, that he was sort of putting some of the beaches in with one district and some in the other district, and I don't know what his thought process was on that, but I'd be really curious for folks who live out there to hear what they think. And then also in the Senate maps, there's also some pictures of that. Senator Hayes was drawing, he was working on some of the areas that are going to stay the same. So, or based on the county clusters, there's part of the map, maybe like, do you want to kind of explain how the map works? There's part of the map that we think is going to be, the county clusters already set.
Yeah, so basically, we have this county groupings thing when it comes to the state legislature. And so basically the counties are grouped together according to a particular formula. And basically we have a situation now where there are, when you do that grouping, there are certain groupings that always happen. So like for instance, like in the House, the Wake County is always its own grouping. Mecklenburg, I think, is also always its own grouping. So there are fixed groupings like that are always the same, no matter how how many times you sort of like run the formula. And then there are some areas of the state, like you were talking about the Northeast, where there are a few different options for how the counties can be grouped. And that means that, like, when you think about there are a bunch of fixed places, and that's actually most of the map. But then there are places where there are some different options for how they can be grouped. And I think that that results in us actually having quite a large range of different optimal county groupings that can be used both in the Senate and the House.
Right. So yeah, so thanks for that explainer. So Senator Hayes was working on the parts of the map that are like gonna stay the same, the groupings that are gonna stay the same. So he was drawing districts in Wake County, Durham and Chatham, Cumberland County, and Guilford County today. So those are also on the Twitter feed if folks are interested in checking out, like, you know, what he did there. And, you know, it's also interesting to see, like, they do seem like they're kind of talking about, they're aware of the municipal boundaries, and, you know, nominally seem to be trying to keep municipalities whole, but also, you know, grouping them sometimes with places that like might or might not make sense to the people that live there. And when they are having to split them, like, they're really just sort of, they don't seem to be putting any thought into like why they're splitting a particular precinct or not. It's just like, you know, whatever the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's so nuts to kind of see them just in there clicking around and think about, like, people live in all of those places. Like, actual people live in every single one of those census blocks that you're clicking or unclicking or whatever. And, you know, it's just really weird to just see it being done so casually when it really has such a huge impact on people's lives.
It's like a game, it's like a video game, but it's not a game. It's real life, and it's really important about, and will, you know, affect the representation that people have. So yeah. Well, so you were watching some congressional maps be drawn. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so Senator Hayes worked on another congressional map this morning. We saw a couple of congressional maps being drafted yesterday. And so I'll quickly share my screen so you can see. And it's sort of like another day, another absolutely out of control, ridiculous congressional map. All right, can you see that?
Yeah, you can see it.
So this is the congressional map that we saw Senator Hayes draft today. A lot of stuff in here, you know, certainly not many municipalities being intentionally preserved. We see that Mecklenburg County, where Charlotte is being split into 4 different districts. I mean, it just blows my mind. Like, why would you do that? Like, the most you would have to split it by population is into 2 districts. So splitting it into 4 is just ridiculous and excessive. And all of those different parts are being paired with much more rural areas. So, you know, you can sort of see that one section is kind of cut out of the middle and it's going into Union and I think Anson County. One section is cut, like a sliver is cut out of the side. It's going to Cabarrus all the way up to like Davie and Davidson. You know, another sliver is being cut out and paired with like some, you know, McDowell County, like out in the mountains. So it's just like it's not just that the city is being split multiple times, which is totally unnecessary and shouldn't happen, but also it's being split up in order to be paired with really different areas that have completely different kinds of economies, concerns, you know, people who, like, I don't think people in McDowell's County spend a lot of time in Charlotte. You know, so it's really like, it's a combination of those 2 things that I think is really egregious. And you see something really similar happening in Wake County. Wake County is being split 3 times. You know, and like one of the sections in Southern Wake is in this really weird district. You can see this like bright green district that kind of goes down to the coast. And it's like, here's Southern Wake County, here's North Topsail Beach. They're in the same district. I love North Topsail Beach. It's beautiful. I actually went there this summer. Don't really think of it as being part of the same like area as Wake County. It takes 2.5, 3 hours to drive there from where I live in Raleigh. So yeah, not great. And, other things we're seeing is that, in this map, Guilford County is split 3 ways again, which, and I can show actually some close-ups. So I think that the split was changed a little bit after this, but you can see, Guilford County is being split up into 3 different districts, and, some weird snaky thing is happening, like going through the bottom of Forsyth and out into the mountains. And this is sort of like another view, but you can see just like a lot of really weird stuff happening. And you can see here, I think this chunk that was taken out of Cumberland, that's basically the Fayetteville part of Cumberland, I think changed a little bit later on when he was working on the map. But again, like splitting that county, I don't know if Fayetteville is even being kept whole as a city in there, but even if it is, like, you're cutting it out of the rest of the county, and that, I don't think that makes sense. And that's definitely not what people in that area were asking for when we went to the public hearings. And also you can see here a little bit closer the way that Mecklenburg is split up. So just like another really problematic map that hurts a lot of people. Another thing is that you can see in this map is that we have this first district in general that covers the first district. Our first congressional district covers like Northeast currently, and that is where a lot of our rural Black communities are. This map is basically splitting our current congressional district 1 in half, and like pairing some of it with counties like Rockingham that are much further to the west, and then pairing some of it with like the Outer Banks. And that's a really, really different pairing for the people who live there than the district. Then like they've been living sort of under iterations of the current district that has a lot of rural Black communities all kind of together in the same district for a very long time. So this is a really radical change too. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. But again, like we saw another really, really problematic congressional map today.
Okay, so any other congressional maps or any other things that you noticed today that you want to talk about?
Well, one thing I do want to bring up is because we've seen these really, kind of out of control, ridiculous congressional maps. We saw 2 yesterday, we saw 1 today. I think a lot of people online, I've definitely seen on Twitter, some journalists bring up the possibility, like, maybe what they're doing here is they are drawing super, super horrible maps so that down the road they can offer a map that looks slightly better and people will just be like, oh, this is great, we're saved, and what I want to say is that, like, be prepared for that to happen. That's totally possible. So, don't fall for it if it does happen. And I think focus on the things that people asked for and didn't get. So for instance, like, I think probably the final map we get is still going to split up Guilford and, pair it with more rural areas. I think that the final map we get is probably, likely to split Mecklenburg in ways that don't make sense, to split it more than it needs to be split, likely to split Cumberland. When that's not necessary by population, likely to split Wake multiple times, may also break up that first congressional district. So I'd say that, when we see that final map and maybe it looks a little bit prettier, don't just be like, oh, I'm so relieved, because it may share a lot of the same problematic characteristics as these maps that we've seen, even if it looks a little bit prettier. So I think, it's totally possible that that's what's going on here. We just don't know at this point. But regardless, there are just lots of problematic things in this map that I think could be made to look better while still hurting people in the same ways.
Yeah, I think something you said earlier that resonated with me was that, what we're seeing, may not be, these aren't the final maps, but we are seeing sort of their kind of what they're going after, what they're trying to figure out how to do with different maps. And it I'm paraphrasing you now, but they may not be uh, drawing, you know, like the exact districts that they want to see, but they're showing us kind of the roadmap or what their kind of goals are with these maps.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because all of these maps are definitely different, have lots of districts that look really different from each other, but they all have some commonalities. They all split Wake multiple times. They all split Guilford multiple times. They all split Mecklenburg multiple times. They all split Cumberland. Like, you know, and they all, like, you know, really reshape that first congressional district. So they're sharing all of these characteristics, even when the districts within them look pretty different.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow. Well, we won't. Will we be there tomorrow? Are they going to be drawing maps tomorrow? What day is it? I forget.
You know, you're just reminding me that earlier I was like, well, tomorrow we'll do this. And you were like, tomorrow is Friday. And I was like, my mind is blown. I had no idea tomorrow was Friday. That's what it's been like this week. You know, I think we don't know. It's typically like just in normal sort of legislative business, they tend not to do anything on Fridays. A lot of members go back to their homes in their home districts on, you know, Thursday night, and so aren't around on Fridays. They just typically don't work on Fridays. They, you know, they basically have a 3-day work week pretty much. So I think it's likely that we won't see any maps being drawn tomorrow, but there's no guarantee. And so we will be keeping an eye on the live streams and, you know, seeing what's going on there. But I think it's likely that we won't see members show up, or if we do, they'll go home by the afternoon and stuff will get shut down. I think that was raised by Destin Hall earlier in the week, that like maybe they just would, you know, stop stuff early on Friday or not have it on Friday or something. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, we'll be paying attention though, and
yeah, we will be watching and we will let you know. And I'm perfectly prepared to run down there if I need to.
Fortunately, you live close, and we will also be having a newsletter, an All on the Line newsletter. Will go out tomorrow with kind of some recaps and maybe some pictures of what we've seen. So on the lookout for that, and we will, as soon as we have more information to share and to recap, we'll be back on Facebook Live.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we will see you soon.